The writer and journalist Rosetta was tasked earlier this year with writing an article called 20 Transphobic JK Rowling Quotes We're Done With. However, after combing through Rowling's work and tweets, she could not find any evidence of transphobia. And when she tweeted to that effect, she was met with a backlash. So I'm delighted to say that Rosetta joins me now. Good evening. Thanks for coming. So let's start with your background. Your background is as a journalist. You've written for a variety of different publications, and then you were commissioned to write this piece. It sounds like the headline of the piece they commissioned, they'd already got a conclusion in mind. Is that right?
Yeah, they do. I'm a content writer, as well as a journalist and a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
So on this occasion, what happens is a Monday meeting comes around and, you know, maybe 30 people will be in there, and it came to the part of the meeting where it was thrown out, OK, so who's on the LGBTQ beat this week? And then they turned it sort of around and said, I bet JK Rowling's being transphobic, so let's do one of those. Who can do that? And I'm ashamed to say I kind of put my hand up. And I went, oh, I can do that. How about... And they'd come up with 20 JK Rowling tweets or quotes. So I said, how about 20 we're done with? And they went, sold, you've got the job.
Oh, so you actually came up with the idea for the title?
Just the last bit.
Just the last bit of the title. OK, that's interesting. But had you in your mind, then, any ideas of the kind of quotations you were thinking of or the kind of things that she'd said? Because I have to be honest, I've read everything she's written about this topic, you know, that big essay she wrote on her website. I've read through her tweets, etc. I've never found or seen any transphobic quotation. But did you have something in mind?
Yeah, you won't find them because there aren't any. I learned that the hard way. I had thought, I was utterly convinced that she was transphobic because I'd seen it so many times. I'd not even read the headlines, really, not even gone into the articles. But when something comes across your feed so many times, I believed it. I saw that she'd written the essay. I didn't read it. I read what other people had said about it.
Right.
And so I thought, OK, this will be quite easy. An article like that will be... I can knock it up quite quickly, and I'm sure it will go very well. So I took the assignment, and then I had to do the research. And that's what...
So at that point, when you take a research, when you've got a sort of predetermined idea of what you're going to find and you don't find it, is the temptation to try and fudge it a little bit or try and, you know, maybe write something that will please the publisher? Or, as you ended up doing, just saying what you found?
Well, I kept pushing the deadline back.
OK.
So, you know, you get on Monday you get your 5 articles to write. So I kept sort of substituting them, you know, hoping no one would notice.
Yeah.
And then at the 5-week point, I started getting chased for it. And then after 11 weeks, I was given the, you know, right, deadline Monday, otherwise we're giving the title away. So I had to sort of think, OK, I could still write it up. But in the experience during the research, I obviously went to JK Rowling's words herself, and it all came to me sort of at once. I realised this isn't a transphobic woman at all. This is someone fighting for women's rights.
So why is it, do you think, that so many people claim that she is a transphobe and are insistent about it? You know, I mean, I've had discussions with people online, and as I will with any claim that people make from any side of the political spectrum, I will say, what is your evidence for that claim? Because if you can't find that evidence, then I think as an adult your responsibility is to revise your position. Why do you think so many people are refusing to either look at the evidence or, once they have, to revise their position accordingly?
I think it's a lot to do with our peers. So in the LGBT community, sort of, you know, there's the umbrella of kinship, fellowship, and, you know, one for all and all for one. So when a trans person says this is transphobic, you believe them. That's sort of the number one rule of allyship. And, you know, I'm a trans ally, a trans advocate, or have been for 10 years. And I, during the research phase, went to all these people in my real life and online, and the list of excuses I was given as to why they couldn't show me anything varied from, oh, she just is. Go and Google JK Rowling transphobic, which you must say, you know, you must admit that's leading, to, oh, I won't do your research for you. So I was sort of deflected. And then when I went to sort of really study what she had been saying, I found myself agreeing, firstly, with everything that she said, and I couldn't find a single sort of transphobic message.
Well, whenever I've tried to, and I have tried to read and look at the people who are making the claims and take them seriously. And those articles tend to be just a series of bad faith interpretations of what she said and not addressing what she's actually said. So that's what we call confirmation bias, of course.
Yep.
And that's very, very, very dangerous, isn't it? Particularly when it's such serious allegations.
It is. And where it went from a clickbait article. So my job usually is... Have you ever had something come up on your feed and it's why lesbians are like cats, and you think, who writes that drivel?
Oh, all the time?
That's me.
Oh, that's
I
you.
write that drivel.
Yeah, okay. So content providers.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But this was more of it turned into more of a journalistic thing.
Okay.
So I kind of thought, this is quite a dangerous topic. This is a very serious allegation to be making. To say that JK Rowling is transphobic, I believed it, because I'd been shown screenshots of things she'd said. But then when I went to actually look at her words themselves, and look in context, it was not...
So let's talk about what happened then. So you tweeted your findings in a thread, which I read, and that got shared very, very widely. What was the response?
Well, the tweet exists. The final deadline was coming up, and instead of submitting the article, I put, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the attachments.
Yeah.
And the tweet exists because I wanted to link to a reason.
Yes.
At the time, I had maybe 2,000 followers, which is a lot. That's a lot of people who've sort of read my work and then come and followed me. But that's why the tweet exists, because I then put the link in. I said, I cannot write it, I'm sorry, and see below as to why.
Yeah.
I thought maybe 10 people would see it. But it just exploded.
And of course, when anything goes viral on Twitter, you get every possible kind of response, don't you? What kind of responses have you had?
At the beginning, the first thing that happened was I got a notification. It was instant that I was on a list called transphobes.
Okay.
So there's no way of taking yourself off that list. But it serves two purposes, the list. First of all, if you want to block everyone that is a transphobe, you can do so, fair enough, block everyone.
So you're on this block list now, effectively?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing it serves, the purpose it serves, is if someone is on Twitter and just fancies being mean to a transphobe, they can just go down the list. So
I see.
I got a lot of people find me that way, and just I got anything from death threats to threats of sexual violence to a picture of my head on a dead body, let's say, and you're next.
So quite violent imagery, violent threat. I mean, so that kind of thing, that just seems to be par for the course for social media, doesn't it? Just really horrible kind of behaviour. Why do you think we've reached this point where people can't have a sensible adult discussion about disagreements? Even of sensitive issues, why can't? Why is it the case that people who say that they're concerned about women's spaces are automatically branded as transphobic when it's perfectly possible to be concerned about women's spaces and to support trans equality?
Exactly. I don't know the answer completely, but I think it comes back to that sort of peer gratification and being part of the LGBT community. I go with community, so queer community, just for short.
Okay.
So within the community, if you try and step outside the bubble, you're seen as immediately, why are you doing that? Is there a reason? When the reason for me was just, I can't write it, that's all. I couldn't find her to be transphobic to the point where I could write the article.
Do you now regret writing the thread that caused so much attention, or do you think it was the right thing to do?
Yes and no. Absolutely wasn't prepared for the Twitter storm. It was my first rodeo. I'm quite a private person, quite shy, really. So having a situation where you're sort of getting so much thrown at you is quite overwhelming. But then something amazing happened, and I'm not going to pretend I was really cool and doing something else. I was on my phone, watching it.
Yes.
And then I was on JK Rowling's profile, and it went, she follows you.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went, oh God, JK Rowling follows me. I'm going to get a telling off. And then,
but she's seen the thread.
I went to click to message her, and she was typing. So I kind of, JK Rowling is typing. JK Rowling is typing. And then it was a message she just was reaching out to see. She said, "Are you okay?" And we had a couple of words back and forth. And I was struck by how incredibly gracious that was. After everything me and my kind had done to her, I wouldn't give us the time of day, but she's so a class act.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well,